Hello, welcome to another reading vlog. This reading vlog, I'm going to be reading books that I am super excited about, ones that I think are going to be 5 stars. So firstly, I got The Digital Mage, which is volume 3 of the Ascender graphic novel series, which is a carry on from the Descender graphic novel series. It's all about this war between humans and robots. Basically, these giant robots turned up, killed a bunch of robots, and then in retaliation the humans started killing off the robots, even though most of the robots had nothing to do with these giant robots that killed everyone. And then in this Ascender series, we're kind of following some of the characters from that first series in the fallout of this war, and there's also a little bit of magic. I'm a little bit worried because I feel like I've forgotten a little bit of what happened in the first 2 volumes. However, I remember I felt the same way going into volume 2, and straight away I loved it. So hopefully I will get over that. I'm going to read that very soon today. And then I'm also going to pick up Blood Heir by Ilona Andrews. So this is the first book in a new series that is set in the same world as the Kate Daniels series, which is one of my most favorite urban fantasy type series. It's kind of a post-apocalyptic fantasy. It's set in this world where magic has started coming back, but it comes back in waves. So when magic works, technology doesn't work, and when technology works, magic doesn't work. And just all the magic that's coming back is quite disruptive. In that first series, we followed a woman named Kate Daniels as she kind of got involved with the local necromancers and vampires and shapeshifters. This one, we're following kind of her adopted daughter as she grows up and comes into her powers. To be honest, I don't really know what's going to happen, but I know I'm going to love it because I love that world and I love Ilona Andrews' writing. It's really action-packed and kind of funny. I love the humor and I love all the characters, so I'm excited to be back in that world. As well, audiobooks. So I started listening to a new audiobook yesterday when I was driving to and from work. I'm listening to The Inheritance by Robin Hobb and Megan Lindholm. So this is a short story anthology, and actually Megan Lindholm and Robin Hobb are the same person. So Robin Hobb wrote The Realm of the Elderlings, which I really love, and there are supposed to be in this short story anthology some stories that are set in that bigger Realm of the Elderlings, but it also looks like the Megan Lindholm stories are more kind of set in the modern world, or more like the 80s and 90s, because that's when this was written. They're set in a more modern world, but they've still got these fantastical elements and more like speculative elements. I read Wizard of the Pigeons by Megan Lindholm last year and I absolutely loved it, and as soon as I started listening to this audiobook, I am so in love. The first book is about this world where there's these aliens who have started coming to Earth. They're kind of exiles from their own planet, and they have membranes on their bodies so they can make any sounds, and they generally make music, but they can't make their own music because it's against their religion, so they're mainly just like replaying human music. But also there's like this paste that they secrete that is somewhat of a drug, and we're following this young boy in poverty as his mother, who really loves music, gets involved with one of these aliens. And honestly, I started the second short story as well, and they're both kind of about characters who are living in poverty to some degree, and I think Megan Lindholm, Robin Hobb, does a really great job of like really giving you that feeling of poverty, but also like helping you understand how people get into that situation, and that it's not just that poor people are stupid or lazy or whatever, that the actual people doing their best, they're just in a bad situation. And like the way she describes it, it's just really realistic and relatable. The second story I've just started this morning. Again, sorry about these cicadas. I started one this morning, and it's about this 35-ish-year-old woman who works in a Sears shop, and she's kind of down on her luck. She wanted to be a writer, but it hasn't really worked out. And then this 40-ish man comes into this shop and basically gives her a warning and calls her a silver lady, and I'm not really sure what's going to happen yet, but the writing, I just love the writing so much. Somehow the way she writes just makes things feel so real, but at the same time her writing is so beautiful. I'm definitely going to have to actually properly look and see what Megan Lindholm books are out there, because I want to read more of The Realm of the Elderlings, but I also want to read more of these like really strange speculative stories that she's writing. But right now I am going to go and dye my hair. You can see my greys are coming through quite badly. I'm going to put some more normal in my hair just because long term, I need to get back to lighter hair so that my grays can camouflage somewhat and I don't have to dye my hair as often because I'm lazy. I like having colored hair, but I'm also lazy. Also, like, I need something, I want to try and find a balance between having colored hair but also still being like somewhat normalish for like work purposes and interacting with normal people. Those normal people, who are they? And I know, like, you think these days that most people would be fine with colored hair, but I have dyed my hair in the past and run into people that I thought would be okay with it and they're not okay with it. And since I work in a professional context, I'm trying to find that balance of like a bit of fun, but also being not too out there for normal people. Although so far everyone that I work with has been pretty okay with this, whatever has happened with my hair. Anyway, off to dye my hair. I'll let you know when I've read some more of these exciting books. Okay, so quick update because I'm about to head out and enjoy the rest of the long weekend with Jace. But I did finish reading The Digital Mage. I really liked it. I do think at some point I'm going to really enjoy going back and reading this whole series in one go, like binging it, because I feel like I am kind of missing some of the intricacies of what's going on. However, I am so engaged with the characters. I love them so much. So I still really loved this. I would say there may be a few bits where the art is a bit rushed. I can't really find an example, but some places the art is a bit rushed and it's quite a loose, rough art style anyway. So maybe some people wouldn't like that, but I don't know. I'm really loving it. As well, I read the first 3, 4, I don't actually know how many chapters, because I actually, even though I got the physical book last night, I ended up reading it on my Kindle because I was reading while I was walking around and doing stuff, and it's easier to walk around with a Kindle, which really makes me reconsider, should I be buying more ebooks and reading them on my Kindle? Regardless, I am loving this. I will say, like, Aurelia is her name. I want to call her Julie. I hope she goes back to being called Julie. She is not as snarky as Kate, which I do miss, although she is still sometimes a badass. Ilona Andrews started out with action, as she always does. It was really good. There's definitely some interesting things going on with Julie. Can I just call her Julia? Julie, she's going by the name Aurelia, so I should call her Aurelia. But it's a lot harder to say Aurelia than it is to say Julie. There was a little section, like a mention of Kate at the end of the second chapter that made me tear up a bit, which is just because I love the characters and I've got that history. So I don't know if you were reading this book without that history, what that would be like. It was cool to also see some of the other characters that we know from back in the last series. Also, I feel like I'm just going to be spending this whole book waiting for Derek to show up. But basically, she is trying to solve this murder case with the eventual goal of saving Kate from death. So there is a prophecy and she's trying to undo it, but if Kate finds out about it, then Kate will die, so she's not allowed to work with Kate on it. I'm going to take my Kindle with me, so maybe I'll read some more over the weekend. As well, my audiobook that I'm reading, I've read, I think, most of the Megan Lindholm stories now. So what I actually did, because I have the physical copy of this book as well, I had a look in it and I found out like all the Megan Lindholm ones are at the beginning and then the Robin Hobb ones. So I think I'm almost through all the Megan Lindholm ones. Also, my physical book actually has like an introduction, and for every story, a little introduction to the story. So I think once I've listened to the audiobook, I might go back and read all of those as well. Now, because these are short stories, even though the characters are really compelling and the ideas are really interesting and the themes are really important, I still feel sometimes like a little bit disappointed at the end because I want so much more to the story. But that is the nature of short stories and why I don't read a lot of short stories. But still, I would say as far as short stories go, these are pretty good ones. I am really enjoying them. Anyway, I already told Jace that I was leaving, so I better actually leave.
Dancing to your beat, wanted to blend in, no self-expression, 'cause I wanted you to see.
Hello, so quick update from me. Sunday night, hang out with Jace, didn't really get that much reading done. I think I have read a couple more chapters of Blood Heir, but I haven't really read anything that I have anything particular to update on. What I have made some more progress on is The Inheritance. Specifically, I've now gotten up to the stories by Robin Hobb. So this first short story that I'm listening to, I haven't quite finished it, is basically telling about the first people that moved to the Rain Wilds and colonized that area, and them kind of running into the difficulties with that area. I think definitely you wouldn't want to read it until you'd read The Live Ship Traders, but having read that, it's really interesting to see the difficulties they're encountering and knowing how they kind of end up. And I think the short story is going to kind of go some way towards explaining how they changed physically and how they kind of became the people that they are in those stories. And I think it's probably a really good setup for going into the Rainwild Chronicles, which is the next series I'm reading in the realm of the Outerlings. So I'm enjoying it. I think the last couple of Megan Lindholm ones that I listened to were just like super short, and I was really frustrated about how short they were. Short stories, sometimes frustrating. Anyway, I need to go into the office tomorrow, so I need to go and get myself organized for that. So that does mean tomorrow I'll be commuting, so I'll get some more audiobook listened to. Maybe not much more physical book, but I guess we'll see. Hello, so I have survived a couple of days of work, going into the office and a day from home. I'm kind of conflicted. Like, days at home are really nice and relaxing, I can get heaps of work done, but also like days in the office, getting there and back is really tiring. But just that vibe in the office sometimes is so nice. Like, people are just having lots of random conversations, and maybe it's not the best for productivity, but like, everyone's there and you can talk to them whenever you want. It's kind of nice. But I'm definitely really tired after going into town. Anyway, let's talk about reading. The night before last, I actually finished off The Inheritance. I really enjoyed it. All the stories were really great. I also quite a few stories about cats. So if you like short stories with cats in them, maybe check this short story anthology out. Although, warning, there are some deaths, some animal deaths in there. Of course, Robin Hobb, Megan Lindholm always writes things in very realistic ways, so it's not like just gratuitous deaths for no reason. It feels very realistic, which is a good thing and a bad thing, I guess, when it comes to deaths. Anyway, I really love those stories. And I really do want to pick up my physical book and read through all the little introductions. I don't know when I'm going to get to that, but I'd like to do that. As well, I am 50% of the way through Blood Heir. And honestly, there was a bit, like maybe a quarter of the way in, I was like, is this dragging on a little bit? However, then some things happened that were exciting. We've got the love interest introduced, and like, I know normally I say that I don't like romance. However, since the love interest got brought into the story, I just keep wanting to read another chapter to find out what happens. Part of me is like, maybe I want her to have like moved on from him because he's kind of like this crush from her childhood. I'm like, maybe she's like grown up and she's past that, and I want her to just be like whatever to him. But at the same time, I'm like, can I just get together? But I'm kind of enjoying the fact that they're not together, but I want them to be. I don't know, I think something about the way that Ilona Andrews writes romances, like slow burn, enemies to lovers kind of things where they have a partnership and that brings them together. I think that's my vibe for romances. I think as well because there's always a strong emphasis on people having lives outside of the romances. That's what I like. So, I'm going to try and find some more time to read that tonight. Also need to do some housework. Tomorrow I'm working a short day because Jason and I have a free hotel stay tomorrow night, and since this weekend is Valentine's, we thought we'd celebrate Valentine's Day. We had to use it by March, so we thought we would use it for Valentine's Day because when else were we going to use it? Oh, actually, I did also start another book. So I've listened to, I don't know how much, of The Power by Naomi Alderman. So this is a story, and it's kind of framed in a really interesting way. So there's like a letter at the beginning from this man to Naomi Alderman saying like, hey, maybe you'd want to read my new book. It's kind of about historical events, even though people might not believe that this actually happened. And she kind of replies in this very sexist way, but treating this man as men often treat women, like, oh, it's a world where men are in power. Oh, I bet it'll be much more kind and loving and maybe even a little bit sexy. So it's really interesting. So we're kind of reading his book, and it's like telling the history of what happened when initially men were in power, but then these women started gaining the power to shock people with their hands, and kind of telling how that shifted the power balance. For the most part though, we're following girls who are in really shitty situations. So either they're being abused by their families, or like their families are just really unsafe places, and that's really motivating them to learn to use these powers more strongly. And definitely one of the girls isn't completely mentally stable, I don't think. But I'm not very far into it, so I guess we'll see what happens next. Since I'm not commuting tomorrow, I'm not sure how much of that I'll actually listen to. But I'm definitely going to read some more of Blood Air tonight, because I really need to know what's going to happen.
I'm scared to lose myself or to grow old. And all my shadows, they just don't know where to go. And life is like a dream where I walk down a long road. And when I wake up, I just don't know where to go. I guess I'll never
So I did really enjoy our holiday stay in the hotel. I am now completely in love with lion dancers. I really want them to be like real creatures, like one of those lion dog things. I would love to have one as a pet. They're like so happy and excitable, and the way their necks go along, and I know that they're really people inside them, but I kind of like to pretend that they're not that. But also, like, how cool is it that people can do this stuff? Anyway, I'm in love with lion dancers now, is the summary. Reading wise, I didn't really read anything while we were away. We were just 15 minutes drive from my house, but anyway, away, I didn't read anything. However, I did read some since I last talked to you, and I'm really loving the way that it just keeps like escalating. Every chapter, kind of in the bit I'm in, kind of, I think I don't know, I'm up to 80% now, so kind of leading up to that, every chapter, it's like some other element gets introduced, and it's like, oh shit, we got to deal with that on top, but I feel like it's all going to come together in a cool way, so I'm like really excited. As well, I'm really liking the way that Kate's found family is being incorporated. So in the original Kate Daniels series, Kate starts out very isolated from other people, and that's intentional from her part, but throughout the series she builds up all these friendships and it kind of becomes a family. And in this series, all those people are Aurelia's, I can never say her name, that's why I prefer Julie, easier to say. Aurelia's extended family is Kate's found family, and so she's running into some of these people and she considers them to be uncles or cousins or you know, just close family friends, and some of them now know who she is, some of them don't, and I'm really enjoying it. I do think you'll get a lot more out of this if you've read the Kate Daniels series, because you'll recognize all those characters. I don't know what the reading experience would be like if you decided to start with this series. And I'd also say there's parts of this where I absolutely love the writing style. I love the way that Ilona Andrews kind of constructs the stories and pulls things together. But there are sections of like the murder mystery where it is a little bit info dumpy. And I think I remember at the start of the Kate Daniels series, there was a lot of that. This not too bad, but there's a little bit of it. And I think it's just because there's so much of the world that it's trying to introduce you to, or even just some of the bits where it's thinking through the logic of the murder mystery, because it's incorporating all this mythology and magic from all around the world. You kind of have to have a bit of that explained to you if you're going to follow along. Anyway, regardless, I'm really enjoying this. I have also been listening to a bit of The Power this morning. I'm not actually sure about how I'm enjoying it. It's definitely really interesting, but it's written more like documentary style. So all the different characters we're following, we're kind of observing them more than following along with them. Also, a lot of the characters are quite like radicalized in terms of this big power shift change that's happening. And I think I like the characters most who are just kind of normal people dealing with this change. And I think for me, even though it's interesting to see how radicalized people can influence things, because obviously lately in the world they have been, but it's also really interesting to me to see how normal people can enact change. So I'm not sure, actually, how far am I? Oh, I got too many apps at the moment. So I'm not quite halfway, maybe 40%. So I guess I'll keep listening to it and maybe I'll see how I feel about it then. Anyway, I'm gonna go and film some things.
Cabinet has chosen to respond with a cautious approach that has served us so well previously, and with the working assumption, just in case, it could be one of the more transmissible strains of COVID that we need to act with a high degree of caution around. The most important lessons we've learned from the times that we have stamped out flare-ups successfully before, and from cases we've seen overseas where outbreaks have gotten away, is the need to go hard and early. Avoid the risk of a wider outbreak and therefore the risk of having longer periods of restrictions. In line with this precautionary approach that has served us so well as a country to date, Cabinet have made the following decisions. As of 11:59 p.m. tonight, Sunday, February 14, Auckland will move to level 3 for a period of 3 days until midnight on Wednesday. The rest of New Zealand will move to level 2 for the same period of time. This will be reviewed on a 24-hour basis, and we will provide daily updates, the first of which will be tomorrow afternoon.
So that is super not ideal. We are back in lockdown in Auckland, level 3, which is not our highest level. New Zealand, we have 4 levels. But pretty much it means just staying home. It's best to stay home. I actually started my current job in the last lockdown that we had that was similar to this. So I guess we'll see. At the moment it's just 3 days, but it could be longer. You never know. Which does make us slightly nervous given that I just went into town for the weekend, but nothing you can do. Just wait and see. That's the way lockdown goes. At least I have a job. We can work remotely. I've still been working remote half the time, so now it'll just be all the time. And in some ways it'll give me some more time at home to do my own thing. I personally don't actually mind lockdowns, like the actual staying home and being in my own space. All good. You know, the virus spreading, people getting COVID, other people not being able to work and having problems financially. Not ideal, but for me personally, staying at home is not a burden. I'm getting all sorts of emails at the moment about things being cancelled. Anyway, I haven't read anything since I last talked to you. I just wanted to talk about this new lockdown. Mainly I've just been editing videos, so I guess I'm going to go back to doing that. It's kind of weird how when a new lockdown starts, if you're already at home and planning to stay at home, things don't really change. But they do change in your mind and in your emotions. And I am kind of having to check my teams are okay and all that stuff. I mean, they're mostly fine. We've all had practice at this now, right? And I am pleased that my government is taking things seriously and getting on top of it quickly, because we know that's the best way to approach it. Hello! So I survived the first day of lockdown. It's kind of ridiculous because everything I did today was exactly the same as I would have done it if it wasn't lockdown, because I was working remote anyway, but still it kind of felt different. I guess I just was checking on a lot of people that they were okay with lockdown and like all that. But we're kind of well practiced at it now. It's not a problem. So let's talk about reading. I finished Blood Heir last night. I stayed up a little bit late finishing it. And then also, because right at the end there's a couple of short stories, so that meant the end came sooner than I was expecting it, because it wasn't, you know, the final pages. It was a little bit earlier than that, and it was the end, and I was like, what do you mean it's the end? And there's so, like, I know this is the beginning of a new series, so of course there were going to be things that weren't going to be wrapped up, but especially the romance in here. I know I don't normally care about romances, but the way that was left, sort of unsatisfying, but also I love it. But how long am I going to have to wait for more of this to find out what happens? I don't know if I can do it. I mean, I'll have to do it. But anyway, the summary is I really enjoyed this. I do think that, like, fans of Kate Daniels are going to love this. People new to this series, I have no idea what your experience would be like, but I really liked this. And I can't wait to get more of Julie's story and see what else happens with her. I really love the way, like, all the different magic that she can do is so cool. And just the way that this world incorporates all sorts of different mythology. Amazing. I loved it. So that means, like, I finished 3 things in the last week and a bit. This one, which I loved. This one, which I loved. And also The Inheritance, which I loved. I would say I think I enjoyed the first story the most, but still a lot of them I really loved. And I do think if you are reading The Realm of the Elderlings, you want to read those Realm of the Elderlings short stories in between The Tawny Man and The Rainwell Chronicles, although I haven't read The Rainwell Chronicles yet, but that's where I've heard it should go. And I think for me, I had read enough to really appreciate those stories, so I think it's good. I am also still just a little bit past halfway on The Power. I haven't gotten much further, so I don't really have many thoughts. And I also kind of suspect it's going to take me a little while to finish it now that I'm not commuting. So that's a downside of lockdown. Although I was hoping with lockdown to be able to fit in a lot more going for walks, especially like level 3 lockdown. The traffic should be fairly quiet, and that makes going for walks much nicer. I have heard the traffic's still a little bit funny, but fingers crossed. Also today the weather was shit, so walking has not happened, which is not what I like. I like lockdown, I guess. When we had our first lockdown, it was like the perfect time because it was like late March, which here is just going into autumn. So it wasn't like super hot summer, but it was not cold either. It was just like cooling down. I went for so many amazing walks, and so now we're back in lockdown, and it's not ideal, but there are parts of lockdown I like, and I want to take advantage of those parts, which is getting lots of time to myself and going for some really nice walks. Anyway, I'm getting distracted by talking about lockdown. What I was gonna say is that, so pretty much all the books that I read in this last week and a bit, I really loved, which is what I expected. And you compare that to the week before when I read hyped books. I mean, those ones I thought were okay, but I didn't love them as much. So given that one of my goals for this year is to try and raise my average rating, means I really need to focus on reading more books that I know I'm gonna love, because they're authors I love or series I love, or just things that maybe sound really appealing to me. I need to focus on reading those kind of ones rather than reading hyped books, which, I mean, I know this is not an amazing conclusion, but somehow it still seems to be a lesson I need to learn. So here's some more evidence for me. Anyway, I need to go and finish up all the other things I'm meant to be doing. But thank you for hanging out with me this week. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I read this week, because I would love to talk with you about them down in the comments, or if you're interested in reading them now that you've heard my thoughts about them. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.